in last 1 year, we've significantly invested on privacy and compliance. And this is a dedicated different vertical in our organization, which definitely have a subsets or have some integration and maybe a lot of integration with security. But yes, keeping it separate in the organization is always helpful, because then you get best of the focus on it. Whether it's GDPR or CCPA, tomorrow there'll be new term which will come in. I look at privacy and compliance as part of the business of the organization. It's you cannot be only GDPR compliant, you cannot be only CCPA compliant. Otherwise, you cannot run behind regulations. There is regulation will start running behind you, right? So you whether a new regulation comes in tomorrow or not, whether you are implementing controls religiously in your organization and not looking only for ticking the box for the regulation to be compliant with, that's where the focus has to be, and that's where I think organizations are driving today. New York might come up with their new law in next 3 months. Then what? You will start implementing a new law again. If there's a data retention policy which needs to be implemented, GDPR might have a different one, CCPA might have a different law, and tomorrow we are regulated by Department of Travel, and then they might have a different law coming in, right? They might have a different requirement. So yes, it is very, very important, and for organizations like us to invest on compliance and privacy, we should not invest based on the regulation coming in. We should look at overall privacy, and then then see how and implement controls which should be reasonable enough for business to operate, and implement controls which are in complying to our regulations as well. Absolutely. There has to be balance between the two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you said that it has to be business savvy as well. It can't bog you down where you constantly have teams, and the checkbox is one thing, but in terms of controls, right? And obviously with travel sites, other than the fact that I'm entering all of my information, even when you think of competitors trying to kind of, skim some of this data, the most valuable searches, if I'm always trying to look for San Francisco to London or wherever else, right? So there's a lot of things there. And along with it, the key loggers that we've seen with customers who have it. So there's just a whole thing around that, right? And I think it's interesting that you said that you can chase after it, but how do you then as an organization make sure you're working with the privacy teams or the marketing teams to firstly be aware of who has access to what, but also what controls make sense? Are they standards that you're looking at that will help you get there? Are they things that are still not automated that you're trying to get tools for to get inventory? Are those part of your process, and have you seen the travel industry kind of gather more of those tools on board as well?
See, one thing is very clear, here we can implement all the controls which are required above and beyond what GDPR, CCPA requires, right? But then we'll also have to look at how we operate our business on. I'll give you a fantastic example. On our, there is GDPR and CCPA has a requirement to make sure that all the cookies which are there on your site have to be, user has choice of either accepting it or rejecting it, right?
That's right.
Now, if you have a cookie or a pixel, maybe, whatever it is. So cookie, let's talk about cookie. So if we have a cookie, which is for marketing purpose, okay, that is a different cookie. And then there is a cookie which basically helps you detect fraud. So if somebody is using a, fraudulent credit card number or something like this, right? Which is, there's a cookie for that. Now you will have to prioritize it, right? Marketing cookie is bringing me business.
Right.
Fraud cookie is detecting a fraud in my site, right?
Absolutely.
And over and above, I have a compliance which says that user is allowed to do it. How can I allow a user to say that you bypass a fraud cookie and then put a fraudulent credit card and misuse it?
That's a good idea.
So there has to be a balance of all these, all these controls, whether it's a compliance control or it's a business control or it's a fraud control. We'll have to keep a balance and run our business in the most compliant, effective, making sure that we are still able to run the business.
So just shifting gears, I kind of to generalize this, do you see, again, you being a CISO, not only within your organization, but you see other CISOs and other, security leaders around the organization talking about this more the past few years, where they're trying to implement best practices, understand better what's available in the market, be a little more stringent in terms of how they're testing these products? Do you see that shift more or less? What do you see in the industry that maybe, even people like myself look at.
Especially in last 1 year, what has happened is I've seen people implementing what we call it as privacy by design. Security by design has been a buzzword, and implementation has been quite significant for last couple of years. But people have started talking about privacy by design, and that's what we also implement. So, for example, if we are launching a new product or you're launching a new feature, how that new feature is impacting, our privacy environment, right? Our how that is impacting. So whether that new feature is sending some more data to some third party, or my overall GDPR, CCPA compliance is getting impacted, or any other compliance for that matter, whether it's PCI DSS compliance or any other compliance which is getting impacted. Can I look at it before the developers even start developing the product?
Absolutely.
And give them that feedback that, okay, you make sure that this is, so that's a more proactive thing, right? So that is what people have started doing. And we have started basically implementing it. And same thing, other players, I speak to a couple of CISOs, and then everybody have started talking about this. Some are in the implementation phase, some have already implemented this, some have started talking about it. But yes, this is something which is coming up as a new thing in the industry. Security by design has been there for quite some time now. People do talk about security when there's a new feature, a new product is coming in. But now privacy by design is also turning up, and I think the new regulations which are turning up, either GDPR, CCP, or any new regulation, or a privacy shield which has come up in New York, they all are adding up for people to think, or leaders to think on how privacy can be, high privacy by design principles can be implemented.